Hey, everybody. Welcome to Odd and Untold, the podcast where we talk about all things strange and spooky. This week, I'm doing another episode of recent Bigfoot sightings. Again, I mentioned a few weeks ago I did an episode about recent Bigfoot sightings, recent reports, because most of my episodes have been talking about reports that happened in the distant past. I mean, we have some from the early 2000s, some even from just a couple of years ago. But I wanted to kind of jump on some of these newer accounts, and for this episode, I'm dealing with just Sasquatch sightings from this summer. So June, July, August. We're in August, so August isn't even over yet. We're kind of not even fully halfway through August, and we have an August Sasquatch sighting. So hope you guys are having a good summer. I just got back from vacation last week, and it was a great time. Spent time with my family, did a little bit of kayaking and campfire, and just had a great time with my family. So I appreciate, thanks to my parental units for taking us all on vacation. And I got to spend time with my niece and my nephew and my son and my parents and my brother and his wife and their dog. And it was just a great time. So I hope all you guys are having a wonderful summer as well. Before you know it, we're getting into spooky season, and then spooky season turns into snowy season, at least here in the Northeast. If you're down south or in another climate, maybe not so much. If you're up north, maybe it's already chilly season. So, but summer up here in the northern hemisphere. So hope you guys are all enjoying it. And we're going to get right into some very recent Sasquatch sightings. Okay, so pulling these stories once again from the BFRO website. And again, say what you will about the BFRO. I know people have very strong opinions. I'm just reading the stories here and giving my thoughts. And like I said, these are recent reports. They're not from any one particular state. So we're going to jump around a little bit tonight. So if your state is mentioned, awesome. If not, let me know in the comments below. I'm happy to cover your state. I tend to do a lot in Northeast because that's just where I live and where I'm comfortable. But if you're from somewhere else and you want me to do Bigfoot sightings from your area, let me know in the comments below. I'm happy to do it. I'm always looking for new episode ideas, and I love when I can kind of bring these things to the attention of people. A lot of people don't realize like that Bigfoot is in their area. So, story number one, submitted by witness Jeff Powers. This just happened on August 4th, so very recent. Like I said, we're kind of just halfway through August here as I record this. Motorists on State Highway 4 observe a Bigfoot crossing the Canadian River 15 miles southwest of Oklahoma City. So, as I said, this happened August 4th of this year, Grady County, Oklahoma. So the location is the point in the river where the Bigfoot was walking when first spotted from the bridge, and then he gives coordinates, GPS. So if you want to go and check this out, if you're local, or you just want to like zoom in on Google Maps, you have like the exact location. Nearest road, Highway 4, bridge over the Canadian River, and observed. He says, on August 4th, 2025, 8:15 a.m., I was heading to work, traveling north on Highway 4 from Tuttle, Oklahoma, towards Mustang, Oklahoma, traveling over the bridge over the Canadian River. I always look up or down the river when crossing the bridge. I do that too, like any bridge, especially if it's like a smaller bridge. Here in New York City, you can't really take your eyes off the road, but if I'm upstate and I'm kind of crossing a bridge, I like looking as well. I'm not looking for Bigfoot. I just like, the sights. On this occasion, looking towards the east, I saw a very large black figure walking across the river. The day was clear and the sighting was at a distance of 80 to 120 yards. The figure was huge and headed north to the bank. It was completely black. I could make out the wake in the water from its passage. I could not make out any details of the figure other than the size was massive and it was walking on two legs. So let's stop right there. First of all, this is at a distance, about 100 yards, let's just say. Let's call it, split it down the middle. 100 yards is end zone to end zone on a football field. So not exactly close, but you're not terribly far either. And he admits he can't really see any details of the figure, but he's seeing the wake in the water, and he's seeing that it's on two legs. He's seeing it's all black. It's bulky. It's huge. I don't think this is a guy in a suit. You're talking August. It's summer. That would be very hot. And ghillie suits are usually not all black. They're usually foliage colored. They're going to be greens and yellows and browns. It's not going to be like this dark black. But he says he could tell the size was massive and it was walking on two legs. He continues, I crossed over the river and turned around and made a complete loop back to look again. The figure was no longer in view. So again, this is something that he's not just dismissing as like this is something strange enough where he's on his way to work and he stops and turns around, possibly being late for work because he wants to get a better look at this thing. He says, I am not sure of the depth of the water there, but the water surface appeared to reach to about the knee level of the figure. He's aware of another story in the same area on the BFRO website, which I'll do in a future episode. The water thing, water fluctuates. Rivers with tides, if you're near the ocean, time of year, time of month. I mean, if there hasn't been a lot of rain. So that's a variable. So even if someone goes back now and gets the exact place where he saw this thing, the water level could be different. So not really a good judge of size, but he's saying what this thing was huge. So I trust that. And it's walking on two legs. So again, it's not a bear. You're talking it's either a man in a costume or a ghillie suit in August, walking across a river where likely to get shot, likely to get seen, or it's Bigfoot. So very little wiggle room there. And the follow-up investigation by BFRO investigator Matt Moneymaker, who my dad calls Matt Penny Pincher, just to be funny. And Matt says, I spoke at length by phone with the witness, Jeff Powers. He is a credible witness. This is a reliable Class A sighting of a Bigfoot. I tend to agree here. I mean, credible. Not saying that this is definitely Bigfoot, but like I said, it's unlikely to be a man in a suit. So what else would be that big and walking on two legs crossing a river? The witness is 62 years old. He served in the Army for 12 years. When he was honorably discharged, he was a sergeant in the 82nd Airborne Division. So tough dude here, After his Army days, he worked in construction for many years. Now he works as a maintenance supervisor at the Bethany, Oklahoma area. He has driven across this bridge over the Canadian River at this same time of day, Monday through Friday, for the past 3 years. So regular route for this guy. This was the only occasion when he saw a Bigfoot while crossing the bridge. On several other occasions, he has spotted deer along the banks of this river from the bridge. The largest herd he has ever seen was 7 deer, but usually fewer. He has hunted deer since he was 12 years old, so he's confident about his distance estimates. So again, a lot of people, I'm pretty bad at judging distance. I don't always get it right. But if you're a hunter, you're looking through a scope, you're tracking animals, you're going to have a little bit of a better sense. And he doesn't give an exact. He says 80 to 120 yards. So he's still guesstimating. He says the figure was in the water roughly 70 feet from the north bank when he first spotted it. It had almost reached the north bank of the river at the point when he lost sight of it. There are trees right up to the edge of the river where the figure was going to exit the water. It would have only needed to take one step to be out of view in those trees after stepping out of the water. So again, thick brush there and trees, and once it's out of the water, it's out of sight. Jeff is adamant that the figure was huge, but he could not give an exact number as to its height. So again, you can tell from context clues of things around it that it's big, but is it 6 foot big, or is it 8 foot big, or is it 10 foot big? He said the torso is definitely wider than a 50-gallon drum. The water was up to its knees. The Bigfoot was walking through the water at that point briskly enough to leave a noticeable wake in the water behind it. The wake through the water was the first thing that caught Jeff's eye. So he's seeing like a disturbance, and then he's seeing this big creature. It was definitely covered with fur that was very dark or black in direct sunlight. And we hear this a lot, like that the fur almost absorbs light. It's so black. It's like blacker than anything else around it. None blacker. So Jeff said that the fur may have been wet, as if the figure may have been submerged in the river just before he saw it. So maybe this thing was hiding, swimming, again, trying to stay out of sight as long as possible if it needed to cross the river. Jeff says there's a lot of wildlife in the woods along the river in this section and for a long distance downstream. So lots of deer, I'm guessing food sources. And there's some images down here below, and I'll get to those. So a very high level view here of, he is here. So that's Oklahoma. So we'll come down here where the zooming in is. And you can see the Canadian River here. You can see where he was. He's crossing this bridge. It looks like a double bridge here. And there's a picture from the bridge. So he's seeing this thing cross the river. It looks like a very muddy sort of river, but yeah, you can see on the banks that there are these trees. And on this side here, This is looking east, so this would be the south side of the river. The trees look a little bit more sparse than on the other side of the river. So interesting, but a good sighting. Again, I don't think you can really mistake this for anything else. It's either a bear or it's a man in a suit crossing a river. And if you're in a suit and you're getting that suit wet, like it's already going to be heavy and hot, and now you're wet. Just doesn't really make sense. Not saying it's definitely Bigfoot, but I don't know what else it could be. So if you guys have any thoughts, let me know down below. But this to me is a good sighting. Okay, story number 2, submitted by witness Kyle Kilgore. This happened on July 19th of this year, so just about 4 weeks ago. Possible Sasquatch observed by cabin renter at 100 yards outside Gatlinburg. So this was in Sevier County, Tennessee. And again, there's some coordinates here, GPS, if you want to kind of go to the location or look at it on Google Maps. Nearest town is Pigeon Forge. Nearest road, 1621 Le Mans Loop. Observed, he says, I was on vacation and just got back yesterday, July 23rd. We were in a cabin outside of Gatlinburg, Tennessee, in the hot tub outside. I was in a hot tub on my vacation too. It's very cool, especially later at night. You know, that's just awesome, seeing the moon and the stars, and you're just in this hot tub. The woods were silent. Then we heard some tree movement. Me, my wife, and her friend were there. I was just looking around the woods and saw what looked like a black gorilla's head and shoulder sticking out of the brush about 100 yards away. The sun was shining directly on that section of brush, but it still looked completely black. I couldn't make out any features other than an outline. So once again, we're hearing this completely black, like it's absorbing the light. A really interesting feature. We don't hear it in every Bigfoot story, of course, but a lot of Sasquatch stories have it where it's this black and it's almost like it absorbs light. Very strange. It did seem like a fur texture around the edges with the round head. The blackness of it is what I noticed initially. So he's seeing something very dark in the bushes. He goes on, I stared at it for a few minutes and thought it looked like a Bigfoot, but figured I was psyching myself out. So yeah, you're looking in the woods and you can see a lot of shapes that look like Bigfoot, you know, especially if something is startling you. So he says, I intentionally looked away for about a minute, staring just at the cabin wall. So he's trying to kind of say, like, maybe this is a trick of my eye. Maybe I'm just, you know, seeing something that's not really there. When I looked back, it was gone. Another minute or two later, we heard trees cracking. I looked around for another 10-ish minutes and didn't see anything else. No other experiences while we were there. So it was him and his wife and her friend. This was at 1 p.m. The environment, mountain forest. There's a follow-up investigation here by BFRO investigator Wayne Tillett. And he says, I conducted a phone interview with the witness and found him and his story of what he saw that day on vacation to be credible. He and his wife and friends were on a trip to the Gatlinburg area of East Tennessee. They were lodged at a vacation rental cabin in the Smoky Mountains. Smoky Mountains has a lot of weird stuff going on. The particular area is dotted with rental cabins. The cabins are situated along a very windy road with a few hairpin cutbacks, a beautiful retreat surrounded by hills and thick forest. The witness stated that he saw the creature right away as the dark hair and silhouette stood out against the greenery around it. They were enjoying the hot tub located on the back porch of the cabin, which faced the winding street and hilly woods beyond. So it's almost like this thing was watching them. It's from a distance. It's in the tree line, watching them. After it caught his attention, he stared at it for what must have been 2 or 3 minutes. The figure did not move at all as he stared at it. Checking his eyes, he turned his gaze towards the back of the cabin. When he looked back a minute later, the figure was gone. When I asked if there was a chance that he could have been looking at a bear, he adamantly said no. This creature had the silhouette of a shoulders and head of a gorilla. So again, bears, they have ears. They look like big dogs, you know, like German shepherds. They have the snout, they have the ears. They don't have a round head. They have a very distinct head. And especially if they're standing up, they almost have no shoulders. They're just almost like a very slim silhouette. There's really no shoulders. It's head, arms, legs, and the picture is up now so you guys can look at that, what I'm talking about. So again, it doesn't sound like a bear. I'll get into my thoughts in a second. Just to the left of where the dark figure appeared in the woods, there's a large body of water. Tennessee and the surrounding states were in the middle of a summer heat wave at that time. Perhaps the Sasquatch was going to get a drink or coming from the water, and the vacationers sitting out on the back deck caught its eyes. So, yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I thought as well when I first read this, that it's observing them. It's just kind of seeing people in a hot tub and they're, sounds like there's women there and they're probably giggling. And animals just tend to be more attracted to female voices, children's voices, just the higher registers versus the lower registers of men. So I'm not sure what to make of this one. 100 yards away, he's seeing a silhouette. He's not getting much detail, but the fact that he's not seeing any ears, that the initial thought that he has is that this is a gorilla's head and shoulders, which a bear doesn't look like that. If a bear is down on the ground, it's just looking very, oval shaped, and you're not getting much detail at all. It's just like a black blob. If it's standing up, you're getting a very sort of thinner profile. You're not getting a head and shoulders. So not sure what to make of this one. Could it have been a person looking at them wearing a suit? Of course. But again, I find it hard to believe that there's that many people running around in the woods in gorilla suits trying to scare people. Someone's going to get shot if that's the case, or would have been shot. I just don't understand that there's like this secret society of Bigfoot hoaxers. He saw something. This one, it's a little less detailed than I would have liked, but still, I think a good sighting. Okay, story number 3, submitted by witness Susan King. So this happened on July 30th. So again, not too long ago. 2 witness daylight sighting of a Sasquatch 3 miles northeast of Highlands on Highway 64. This is in Macon County, North Carolina. Again, there's some GPS coordinates here if people want to go check that out. Nearest town is Highlands, nearest road, Highway 64. And observed, she says, my fiance and I were driving from Sapphire Valley, North Carolina to Highlands, North Carolina, when the car in front of us stopped suddenly for what appeared to be a large black creature. It appeared very suddenly and jumped over the guardrail with ease. It had long arms and dark hair, very tall. We couldn't make out the face. It obviously startled the car in front of us, which slammed on its brakes. This car was a blue Hyundai Genesis. We were gobsmacked. It happened between 4 and 5 p.m. on Wednesday, July 30th, 2025. Although I am a skeptic, I've never truly witnessed anything like this before. Very strange. So she was with her fiance. This was between 4 and 5 p.m. It was on a highway surrounded by thick forest and mountains. And I'm going to go through the follow-up investigation by Matt Moneymaker again. And Matt says, I spoke with the witness by phone. Both witnesses, both are very credible. This incident happened in daylight. The creature they saw could only have been a Sasquatch. I've said this before, I don't like Matt's complete certainty with things and speaking about things as if they're fact. But what can you do? Some people might be surprised that a Sasquatch would come so close to human structures, but they are just a cluster of structures in an ocean of mountain forests. Other animals like deer and bear will frequently be seen close to structures like this in this type of environment, so it should be no surprise that Sasquatch will come to this close as well. The part of the USA where North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia all intersect is a sweet spot for Sasquatch sightings, and that's true. There's a lot of sightings down there. In road crossing cases like this, some people will always ask, did they go back to look for footprints? I will preemptively address that question the way I always do when it pops up. If a report like this does not mention the witness returning to look for footprints, then assume it didn't happen. You don't have to ask. So a little snark there. But I get it if he's getting asked the same question. And then he goes on to some more snark here, which I'm not going to get into. So let's just kind of look at some of the maps here. So you have Highlands here, which is in the southern part of North Carolina, kind of close to the border with Georgia and South Carolina to the south. And you kind of see where the sighting was. And there are some structures here, but if you look around, there's a lot more just woodsy areas. So if this thing is passing through, on the one hand, yeah, it's got to pass through civilization. But on the other hand, if it just went a little bit more towards the west, it looks like there's nothing here. And it could have just passed by without being seen. And here's a picture of the road. Roadside crossings always intrigue me. And Scott and I, my buddy Scott, who's been on the show multiple times, we've said since the early days of this show, roadside crossings don't really make a lot of sense. This is supposedly an elusive, intelligent primate or cryptid or whatever you think it is. But I think intelligence is always attributed to it, whether you believe it comes from portals or UFOs, or if it's just an undiscovered primate, that they are intelligent, that they are elusive, they know how to hide. So why do they constantly seem to be jumping out in front of cars usually at night, but we do hear about these daytime crossings as well. And this is late afternoon between 4 and 5 p.m. in a populated area, not heavily, this is not downtown Manhattan, but there are buildings around. And like I said, if it went a little bit to the west, it could have crossed and not been in someone's backyard, may have still been seen by a car. Interesting that two cars saw this. But again, this is not a bear. It appeared suddenly and jumped over the guardrail with ease. A bear's not going to do that. Bears are lumbering. If you see a bear crossing a highway or crossing a road, they're just kind of they're kind of dopey. Even if they're running, they're not jumpers. I mean, they can climb trees, but they're not going to jump over a guardrail. They'll just go over it or very slowly climb over it if they had to. It's on two legs, very black, long arms. So they're seeing long arms, dark hair, very tall. Again, black bear don't tend to get very tall, usually in the 5 to 6 foot range. I'm 6'1", and I'm considered tall. And most people have seen someone my size. They're, someone 6 foot tall is not going to be abnormally tall, very tall. So interesting. You have multiple witnesses here. It's on two legs. It had long arms. A bear's arms aren't that long. I mean, they're long, but the legs are very stubby. It's not going to run across a road. It's not going to jump over a guardrail. So once again, this is a good sighting. Either a man in a suit, ghillie or gorilla, or it's an unknown primate. So take your pick. Let me know what you guys think about that. She's a skeptic, and she's saying she saw something she can't explain. So very interesting. Okay, and our last story for this episode, submitted by witness Ryland Snyder. Two campers using binoculars observe a Bigfoot along the Wenatchee River. And this happened June 26th of this year. So again, not that long ago, late June. This was in Chelan County in Washington State. And Washington State has a ton of sightings. I'll get to that state someday, I hope. And it'll be many different episodes, I'm guessing, because there's going to be a lot of stories. So the nearest town is Plain, Washington, and the nearest road is Chihuahua Loop Road. And observed, he says, I was out camping with a buddy at the Wenatchee River along the bank a couple miles down the river from the mouth of the river/lake. Nobody around us for days except the occasional group of people floating or kayaking the river. Our camp was up the cliffside from the river, so we had an awesome viewpoint across and down the river. So they're out camping, they've got a nice view, occasional kayaker or somebody, floating in the lake going by. Saturday night, we were sitting around camp, relaxing and trying to get out of the sun, as we had been on the water swimming and fishing all day. We were having a normal conversation, and my buddy's face went blank, like he had seen a ghost. I just kept talking, and he wasn't responding. So after a minute or so, I go, what's going on? He asked me to get up quickly and quietly and go grab the binoculars. I retrieve them, hand them to him, and he starts looking again, staring through them, not saying a word or answering me. About a minute again after just staring off through the binoculars, he starts pointing. Goes, look down my hand. You see those two trees on the tall tree line? Then points out the tree in front of those and a very leafy looking tree about 20 feet tall, if I had to guess. I need to go back out and look around and measure it up. He says, look to the left of the tree, and handed me the binoculars. This is where it gets crazy. I start looking through the binoculars and see a creature standing there on two legs, damn near half the height of the tree, so I'd guess 8 to 10 foot tall, standing there. Had very dark reddish-brown hair that covered its whole body except its face and hands. Was super thick and wide, not just tall. Its face looked very ape-like with its features, big mouth poking out, big old nose, kind of flat, though at the same time just very monkey/ape-like. As it's standing, it's using its arms and hands to move stuff around like branches and brush. I shook my head in disbelief at what I was seeing. When I looked back through the binocs, I see the same thing I saw before. As I'm looking, this time I asked my buddy, you saw whatever this is moving, right? He goes, yeah. I hadn't seen its face until this point yet. The creature turned its head, and I was staring at its face just from the side. I was mind blown at what I was seeing. In that instant, it looked over at the river, scanned upriver a bit, looked straight up at us on top of the cliff, and it ducked down for about 15 seconds, then sprinted off into the woods on two legs upright. I regret not having my phone with me. I will now be investing in a camera and investing some time up in the area, searching until I find it again. I have added coordinates that'll be very close, but we'll go back for the exact ones this weekend. He says, I'll be going back to check this weekend for footprints, fur, the creature. I had fallen the next morning, so I had to go home. He was sick. Other stories. Yes, I've actually heard and smelled interesting things I could not explain. as well as the ones posted on your site. He says this was around 7 p.m. on the 26th, about 70 degrees out, little to no clouds. Sun wasn't setting, but was tucking behind the trees, creating a shaded area along the river. He says this was right off the Wenatchee River. And there's no follow-up investigation here, but I wanted to give my thoughts on this. This is another really interesting sighting. The interesting thing to me is the reddish brown hair covering its whole body except its face and hands. He's seeing hands, not claws. He's also saying that it had a very ape-like features, a big mouth, a big flat nose, very monkey/ape-like. It's moving its arms to move stuff around, branches and brush. It crouches. It stands back up on two legs. Again, this is not a bear. A bear is going to have ears. A bear has a long snout, usually a different color, usually more tan. Not always, but again, you think somebody camping in Washington State who's a fisherman knows what a bear looks like. It looks at them. It's staring at them. They're looking through binoculars. This thing sees them up on the cliff. If this were a bear, the bear is probably not going to notice them from that distance. So just really interesting. It's scanning the river. We hear that a lot from Bigfoot too, that they look around, they scan. And then this line gets me. It sprinted off into the woods on two legs upright. So that rules out a bear. So once again, you have that, it's either a man in a suit, ghillie, gorilla, Bigfoot suit, or this is Sasquatch. There's really no in between. The only other option for any of these stories is that they're lying. And I say this all the time. Are there hoaxers out there? Of course. Are there people out there who are going to spend their time writing stories, sending it to the BFRO to scam people? Of course. I'm sure some of these stories that are in here are complete fabrications. I don't know. But just statistically, I would say a few of them on the BFRO are probably complete fabrications by some jerk who just wants to get a laugh. I will accept that. I don't believe the vast majority of them are. I don't believe these people are lying because they're taking the time to write out these stories, usually in a lot of detail. And then they're spending time either on the phone or meeting in person a BFRO investigator, taking them back out to the place they had their encounter. That's a lot of effort to go through to just go home and then privately laugh at people reading the story or the investigator. It's just, again, I've said it time and time again. Where's the payoff? Where's the punchline? Where is the, ha, I got you? It never comes. And that's a key part of hoaxing or pranking someone or people is you have that payoff. And you don't get that with these. So I'm not saying that means that, yes, they exactly saw Bigfoot. They definitely saw Bigfoot. It definitely exists. I don't know, but it's either a person or a Bigfoot. And in a lot of these stories, Bigfoot is more of a rational explanation than a man in a suit. You're talking about hot temperatures. You're talking about walking through water. You're talking about sprinting into the woods wearing a heavy suit. A man is going to, again, kind of lumber and trip and be cumbersome and awkward. They're not going to sprint. They're not going to gracefully jump over a guardrail. They're not going to be able to run uphill quickly and then get out of sight. They're going to fall. They're going to stumble. It just doesn't make sense to me. Again, I'm not saying Bigfoot definitely exists and this is proof. It's not, but it's evidence. And, these are good stories. These are daytime sightings. These are clear for the most part. These are people who are experienced. They know what they're seeing. So really cool stories here. All right, everybody. So there are 4 Sasquatch sightings from this summer. So very recent, very cool sightings, just daytime, very clear, lots of detail for the most part. And no tree knocks, no howls, no tree structures. They're seeing these creatures. These are eyes on the creature. So I like these stories. And yeah. So like I said earlier in the episode, if you guys have a particular county or city or state you want me to focus on, shoot me an email or leave a comment down below. Jason@oddandountold.com. Or like I said, you can just leave a comment on the video and I will be happy to cover your story, your state, your town, your county in a future episode. And until next time, everybody, again, question everything. I get comments from people saying they don't like when I question these stories or that I analyze them. And I think they need to be analyzed. And just because I offer different possibilities doesn't mean I'm debunking the story, doesn't mean I don't believe the witnesses. It's just we have to question everything. We have to wonder, are these witnesses seeing what they say they're seeing? I believe they're sincere for the most part, but were they mistaken? Is it mistaken identity? Were they pranked and just don't know it? We have to ask these questions, and that's why I ask the questions. And I encourage you all to question everything. Also, to embrace the weird. Yeti lives, my t shirt. And until next time, everybody, rock and roll. Keep enjoying your summer. Stay cool.